Welcome back to HT's weekly talk show, The Interview, and our ongoing segment, Life and Times with HT. Last week, we did the first part of our segment with Nripendra Mishra, whose name was synonymous with power, given that he was among Prime Minister Narendra Modi's chosen few. This week, in the second part, we continue with Nripendra Mishra's life with its twists and turns, his tenure in the PMO, his handling the Prime Minister's museum, and overseeing the construction of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. I feel God handpicked me to do this task, is what he told me once. This and much more with Nripendra Mishra in HT's weekly talk show, The Interview, in our special segment, Life and Times with HT. Fast forward, you officially retired some years ago, and yet you have never retired. In fact, the act was amended by Mr. Modi to accommodate you. What was the glue, and why did Mr. Modi moot for you? Now, please don't say I don't know.
No, I don't. It's the truth. I had never ever met the present Prime Minister before 20th May 2014. I am very sure that he also did not know me.
Then why would he go that extra mile to, in the first few days, if not weeks, to amend the act, to get flack, to accommodate you?
First, the decision was made. You see, I was asked to meet him. Jaitley ji was invited.
And you went to Gujarat Bhavan.
Gujarat Bhavan. So, I met him. He was giving his vision and he did say that I want an officer who can implement. Then he asked me to work a little bit in the back room. The job was how to rationalize the cabinet portfolios here because the ministry was not formed yet. He had not taken oath. And he said that you don't get influenced by anything that numbers, this and that. What you think should be rationalized, please come up with a proper solution. After 2 days, I was called in again, and I recall Mr. Jaitley was sitting, Mr. Amit Shah was sitting, and then he said, so I gave the paper to him. Mr. Jaitley, in fact, commented that he is thinking on the lines, I have my suggestions. Amit Shah ji said, yes, it's all very good. But in a political process, there are issues of regional representation. There are issues of social representation. So sometimes the number will have to be compromised. By that time, I was told to go out. Next day, I was called again and Prime Minister made the offer that, will you like to serve as Principal Secretary? Of course, I told him, honor for me. Now you want to know how he picked you up. I have still no 100% proof, but I do know that there was a meeting of Modi ji, Amit Shah ji, Rajnath Singh, Arun Jaitley, Sushma Swaraj, Gadkari ji. It took place in Ahmedabad before 20th.
Before 20th May 2014.
Yeah, this was 20th. I think they had one or two names. Perhaps I may be number one there. Now, who proposed, who seconded, I don't know. I know that there were one or two more officers because on 20th they were also waiting in the same room where I was. So clearly some kind of interview was taking place. This is all I know about my appointment. You asked that how come he will be so adamant about you. You see, that's his nature. If he makes a choice, he doesn't change. I mentioned this when he said that will you serve as principal secretary? I mentioned Jaitley ji was sitting. So Jaitley ji being an expert in law, he said, no, it doesn't really matter. We'll make amendment. So again, Prime Minister looked at him. What kind of amendment is required? So he said, this will have to be amended. The Tri Act will be amended. How soon can this be done? And Jaitley ji said, ordinance will be necessary. So that is how the ordinance was issued, which got later endorsed in Parliament, and that the rest is history.
Okay, that part you don't know, but the part you know, working with Mr. Modi 2014 to 2019, what were the difficult times and what were the major takeaways?
The Prime Minister was very clear about the direction he wants to give. There was a little that you could do as far as the broad policies are concerned. He has a vision. He also is much more ambitious than we were right from the beginning. His targets were much higher. So we had to work within quote unquote his vision, and wherever there were occasional differences, I faced one within 3-4 months, or perhaps even earlier. This was about GST. Prime Minister, as the Gujarat Chief Minister, had opposed the imposition of GST. Very natural.
Yes.
The nature of state is such. So how could he change? So when the presentation was made by Mr. Jaitley along with officers, the first time he just dismissed it. He said, no, there are many issues and I will have to consult both the manufacturing states and consuming states, and therefore I cannot approve it. So we were disappointed. We went out. Jaitley ji called me in his room, again discussed. So we thought of some strategy. It needed 2 more presentations to him. And perhaps he got convinced only when 2 words were mentioned to him. One, it is one nation, one taxation, which is GST, no doubt about that. Number 2, it was mentioned that anybody who will impose GST or pass GST or accept and get it implemented, perhaps will become the front runner for introducing economic freedom. So he was told that this taxation, once we free the traders from the rigors of taxation policy and multiple taxes at various levels, on these 2 he stopped and heard very, very patiently. He said, okay, work on it. I will give my doubts to you people, come with a solution, but GST will be implemented. You see, once he decides, he doesn't change.
Come what may.
Come what may. Perhaps only twice I recall, one during my tenure and one immediately after. Both related to farm, agricultural reforms. If you recall the second time when he went before the nation, he mentioned more or less that I was wrong in recognizing that the time for agricultural reform has come. I think it was premature. And let me tell you, on the issue of farmers, he strongly believes that while the farmers gave self-sufficiency in food, he also strongly believed that the farmers haven't got the fair remuneration on this. So this thought was all the time there, and it was always reflected when he decided the minimum support price. So that is how his determination and never changed.
You know, many of his decisions including the GST, have come under attack, maybe from vested interests, but they have. Bringing back black money, demonetization are the other two. So just take me through those decisions.
Demonetization is part of his commitment to eradicate black money. It was not just demonetization. People sort of evaluate him unfairly. I agree with demonetization. It may not have achieved 100% success, for which I also take the responsibility.
Just explain that to me.
There were certain assessments which you make which doesn't go the way you want to.
So, where did this falter?
I won't discuss in great detail, but there were institutions who were responsible for demonetization, who were the main actors for demonetization, for implementation of demonetization.
Which did not happen?
No, it happened. But it happened with certain degree of, I wouldn't call it lack of transparency, I would even go to the extent of corruption. When people ask that why, the expectation that there will be lots of notes which will be burned didn't take place. Obviously, those notes got converted. So, the institutions which were responsible for all of it, responsible. The Prime Minister was going all the way. And I may be digressing a little bit, but let me tell you that even in the middle of crisis of demonetization, the crisis was not about the policy. The crisis was that the notes, fresh notes, they were not available. They were in short supply. The printing was not done. It was 12 o'clock in the night when he was reviewing how many printed at Devas, how many printed here, etc., etc. Our printing presses which are there.
So, wasn't that a failure, not being able to anticipate what was required when you take such a major step?
One is, but failure still is not so much as I would still say, perhaps the institutional role was wanting.
They were not willing.
They were willing, I've already gone to corruption. I don't want to discuss this, but there was an element of that which was happening. But what I am wanting to tell you is, see the man who was facing the problem how to solve the shortage of currency at 12 in the night says, from tomorrow and next 1 month, digitization will be the slogan. So please enforce that maximum payments are made. All these payments by petrol stations and all, the cards were given, the rates were, brought down about the conversion and mode of digital payment. Machines were given to the traders. Suddenly, this country was now handling through the digital mode of payment. And today, after all, people don't recognize his contribution. In the whole of the world, the number of digital payments and amount in India is a lot more than any other countries, including developed countries. The Aadhaar and the digital payment are the two successes, and they are systemic successes of the present Prime Minister.
What are his failures?
I shouldn't discuss failure because he is still the working Prime Minister. But he himself has acknowledged that the bureaucratic institutional building that he wanted perhaps is not keeping pace. And he always acknowledged that that change he could not bring about in the bureaucracy, highest bureaucracy, obviously not. And the other, of course, he also was very conscious that transparency, corruption, and let us say lethargy at the lower level of bureaucracy still remains rampant.
On another point, the story of Raghuram Rajan, the former RBI governor, and the controversy and his standing up, if I may use the term, to Mr. Modi. And at one point, Mr. Modi's assertion that he can dictate terms to the central bank, and to quote him, who dares to say no to the Prime Minister?
This again is totally exaggerated.
But he said this himself in Australia.
I'll tell you. After all, even today, you hear Mr. Trump saying to Powell that the federal head will be removed. And he is also asking for the same thing, lower interest rate.
God forbid Mr. Modi is not actually acting like Mr. Trump.
So he was very conscious that Mr. Raghuram Rajan is a very good economist, monetary policies. He was equally conscious that his assessment, Prime Minister's assessment, academically is not of the level of Raghuram Rajan. But there were certain things everybody wanted. I wanted, Jagdish Saab wanted, many others wanted, that certain changes must take place, whether it was a question of surplus transfer of profit from RBI to the government so that the fiscal deficit is saved, or it was a question of interest rates versus inflation, and there can be difference of opinion. In fact, in one of the meetings of the RBI governor with me, I just raised the subject, and he, of course, was very conscious that he will not discuss this issue of interest rate with me. So I quoted to him Ramayana. He didn't understand, but I did quote. I tell कि गवर्नर साहब, एक रामायण में तुलसीदास ने लिखा है, का वर्षा जब कृषि सुखाने. So the meaning is, what's the point of rain if the crop is not there, dry? So I said, maybe the interest rate will come and you will think that it will come some other after a later time. But by then, what we expected may not happen. He laughed. He said, well, that can be a viewpoint. He got his full term. People say he was prematurely asked to go. No, the term is 3 years. The next 2 years are extension which has to be consciously taken. Many people retired at 3. So it's overplayed.
But what about Mr. Modi saying, who dares to say no to the Prime Minister? Isn't that shades, and I'm using a mild term, dictatorial?
No. Prime Minister Modi has heard no, not only from governor, he has heard no. There are ways of saying. If the cabinet secretary says no, he will say, sir, I do not agree to pass this order. However, I would sincerely abide if the cabinet passes the resolution. So, he has heard no from the cabinet secretary. I have often advised him one-to-one that, sir, this may not be necessary. Likewise, when he is making the statement, he is making a statement that the Prime Minister's views must be respected. Beyond that, I do not recall he ever saying or issuing a threat to Mr. Raghuram Rajan. Never, ever. No. Absolute no.
Okay, so let me put this differently. What are the things he does not like to hear? And what are the things that one can never say to him?
Well, all his speeches to the secretaries, he always said that you can say whatever you want.
And I will do what I want.
No, he never said that. He would always listen. He's a very patient listener. So, I don't think he will say that I don't want to hear and please don't say this. I know one thing for definite. And I don't think he makes any compromise. That is on corruption. He may accept that he has not been able to eradicate. He may accept that black money is still there, roll of black money is there. But on the issue of corruption and transparency, he abhors.
You know, what about the criticism of his being soft, or his friendship or association with Mr. Adani, Mr. Ambani? How does he handle all this? Does he even care, or it doesn't matter? I mean, what is all that about?
Never occurred. It never happened during my time. Decisions were never taken in favor of one or the other. Let me give you one concrete example. When the bidding took place for privatization of airports, the evaluation as reported by Ministry of Civil Aviation was that all the bidders, and each one was evaluated separately, they have gone in favor of Mr. Adani, who has bid the maximum revenue sharing. We felt, in fact, originally we had thought even at the bureaucracy level that perhaps we should have put some kind of a ceiling so that there is no monopoly. But it was not there. They were open bids. But we felt that it would be worthwhile not to give all to Mr. Adani. And in cabinet, I recall that when such a suggestion was made by bureaucracy, he accepted. In 2 cases, it was not given.
Coming to another point of the RSS, how much, and he's been brought up in the RSS, how much of their ideology and philosophy has influenced his governance?
Again, I shouldn't be quoting, but I will. Once there was some discussion, and I was making a comment about certain things happening where the RSS reputation in some manner was at stake. I was very frank. I told him, we were only 2. So he said to me that, Mr. Mishra, you know my background. If somebody comes from RSS and he's a volunteer or a senior worker of RSS, I give him immediately without checking the certificate of integrity. For me, he says, it is extremely difficult to think that a volunteer of RSS would not be honest and transparent. So, when you say that what kind of influence, this is the kind of influence he has and judgment about the RSS worker. But obviously, there are examples, and I know for certain that certain directional changes at an operational level, they were made in the full knowledge of me. That if somebody was seen interfering, very strong action was taken. The person was immediately withdrawn, or the person was asked to leave the chief minister's office in spite of the fact that he was from the RSS background.
Yes, but when it comes to policy, how much of the RSS thinking has influenced national policy?
Well, there could be. How can I not? Because he has been interacting, reading, literature, everything. So, issues like education policy, culture, he was conscious of the RSS priority, but he was not led by RSS policy. That's the point I will make. So, he was always respectful of what the RSS policy is and how they will interpret.
How often have ministers been in tears?
In tears?
Yes. Or rattled? Or thinking, oh God, today I have lost my job?
I don't think anybody will come to that conclusion. Rattled occasionally, yes, it did happen. When a certain agreed policy was not getting implemented, then the Prime Minister, though he was, any time that he made such a dialogue, he was very discreet that the officers are not there. His information system is very strong about the performance of the ministers.
How reliable is it?
The information system, really, because he gets to know from people, he talks to the bureaucrats, his PMO also is there. So that system is there. Now, you can say at times that there could be some judgment here and there. But overall, I always noticed that the relationship between the minister and the Prime Minister was, the ministers were expected to give their mind before the decision. The ministers were not to be excused if the decision is not getting implemented, I'll tell you what disturbed him very much. And he, to some extent, compromised. I will use the word. He was very keen that the ministers of state, all ministers of state, must be delegated powers of the minister. He knew it that they are not getting more than answering parliament questions. And he would often quote that. So while he was expecting that the apprenticeship will go through a certain rigor, it was not happening. This was a very big disappointment, and he would always watch how many ministers, when they hold meeting with the officers, call the Minister of State, how many files will pass through Minister of State to the Minister for Decision Making. So, yes, but occasionally he has conveyed his displeasure. Let me dispel one thing. Some people feel that there is very little discussion in the cabinet. I would say that the senior office ministers almost all express their opinion. I recall Venkaiah ji speaking. I recall Gadkari ji speaking. I recall Arun Jaitley ji speaking. All these senior ministers were able to give. Rajnath Singh ji was giving his opinion.
How often did you speak and how often did you tell him, sir, this cannot be done?
I would mostly speak to him on a one-to-one basis. Secondly, I would give my very frank advice, but always assure him that after the advice, if you will say, it will be implemented. So there was never a situation in which we were confrontational, that this cannot be done and this can be done. But let me tell you, he is extremely respectful of the senior officers. When it came to principal secretary, if he said this be deferred, the item was dropped. Cabinet secretary again, his opinion was respected a great deal.
But were there moments when you said, oh God, today I have lost my job? Or, oh God, never again?
I don't think it ever happened. I will tell you a very frank, perhaps nobody would know. There was a meeting which was going on after about 3-4 years. So meeting got over at 11:30 in the night. So he called me, Mr. Mishra, could you please come into my room? So I went to his room, thinking that he will perhaps give some instructions. He said, Mr. Mishra, I find a change in you. I said, so what happened? He said, I don't see that you are present in the meeting. I have been noticing that your mind is not there. So, of course, he said it in a very, let's say, light manner, not reprimanding me. But it made me rethink about whether it's true. But it never meant that he's going to reassess my existence in PMO.
And what was the reason? Why was your mind not there?
You see, I can't put my fingers on that. I did analyze. Maybe I may be thinking some other subjects, or the matter is getting debated too long, some such thing. But he generally expected the principal secretary to be a very active participant.
Hands-on.
Not participated, and must clearly express, is he saying yes or no?
Modi and Nehru has always been a topic of conversation. Why is Mr. Modi so Nehru obsessed, if I may use the term? And in one sense, wanting to erase everything that has a Nehru Indira Gandhi stamp.
I won't get into the political side of it. They are members of one party, he is member of another party. And perhaps he definitely has fought that party politically. But let me first dispel the impression very strongly. When this museum was changed from Nehru Museum to Prime Minister's Museum in 2018, It was his simple but extremely strong desire that it should be more democratic. And it must represent the deeds of all the prime ministers who are responsible for the development of the country. When it came to Nehru, there was some talk in various lobbies that the main building, Block 1, which was Mr. Nehru's museum, there was some kind of a rumor going on that, he'll be put in the one corner. I recall he calling me and wanting to know what is the plan for the Block 1. And one thing he mentioned was, whatever has been the Prime Minister Nehru's museum, please maintain that. But along with that, please enlarge the various aspects of his personality and contribution. Now you see the right wing of the building number 1, where his gallery has been extended, and the manner in which we are now keeping the earlier rooms like Nehruji's personal bedroom, Nehruji's study, other places and collections. We today conserve lot more gifts, paintings and his own personal dresses, much more in a scientific and advanced manner than what was given to us.
I believe you inherited it in a shambles.
Many, many, many gifts given to Honorable Prime Minister Nehru that was just in a storeroom.
Some in a dustbin and a trash can also.
Now, I won't call it dustbin, but yes, they were just, no care was taken. Because I'll tell you, there is a limitation. It is not political at all. It is the staff was not trained for it. There was no preservation man. There was no chief curator. There was no conservation man. So all these items of gift were just kept because the space was not there. Today, 100% the gifts which were given to the Prime Minister Nehru, that has been preserved and it can be visited. And it is now being displayed.
But what about his obsession to erase the Nehru Indira Gandhi stamp?
I wouldn't go into the political because the subject gets political. It is not a question of personalities. Then it's a question of ideology. And so that's not my domain.
Okay, fair enough. So let me come back to the key points and the major main takeaways of the museum, of this Prime Minister's Sangrahalaya.
There are 3 important things happening. One, there is no negative message when you come out after seeing the museum. Every Prime Minister's positive contribution has been recognized. 2, the element of equity in terms of space and time that you will spend, that has been observed maximum to the extent possible. And 3, we have displayed to best of our ability the private artifacts of all the prime ministers. There has been a limitation, of course. For example, we wrote to the family of Morarji Desai that please kindly give us his artifact. Morarji Desai had given all the documents and artifacts to Gujarat Vidyapith. So there was no way we could obtain it. The takeaway is, apart from technology, which of course we claim that it is the most advanced technology in India, in the museum, these 3 considerations while writing the script, displaying the script, has been taken into consideration.
Mr. Modi must have had his inputs. How often was it when they did not match up to the levels he wanted to see this museum? And which I would say was a roadblock.
We had to make course correction, not so much roadblock. He was given presentation about the gallery from time to time. The first observation of his was that there is perhaps disproportionate use of technology, which may pose problems in future in terms of sustainability. He said that museums are a permanent display centers and we should. So he had sent a group of ministers, IT minister, and there were 2-3 ministers who are technologically savvy to see the concept, why we have chosen, immersive technology or touch technology by which our facility to deep dive into knowledge. He was also conscious of the script. He did not want a script on sensitive issues. You can imagine. It has happened in the regime of many people. It has happened in the regime of Indraji, happened in the time of during the Lal Bahadur Ji's last days in Tashkent, that before and after. And we avoided that. If you see it carefully, you'll suddenly see that certain events have been downplayed because they are controversial. They are sensitive to certain class of people.
How is Prime Minister Modi's gallery different from the others? And what are the salient points?
Good point. Making a Modi gallery was a challenge. You know that when he inaugurated, Modi gallery was not there. He had made it a point that he will not inaugurate if his gallery is there. After a lot of debate, after about 6 months to a year, that we decided to go for Modi gallery. And the idea was, since it is Prime Minister's gallery, we will cover his first 2 terms, which are over. And we will not cover his chief ministership. But it is difficult in the sense that Prime Minister is continuing, and each of these schemes of his, I perhaps did not mention, they are all modular. You see one achievement and then you will see the next goal. Every time one achievement, you see the next goal. That is how he does things. So it figures here in Modi Gallery also. So some people may say that the activities or decisions, they have been overplayed, are disproportionately shown in his case. We don't think so, but we are in the process of even review. We are at the moment reviewing the Modi Gallery, and it's a continuing process.
But how logical is it to have a gallery of, I won't say living, but a functional Prime Minister? What is the logic?
I mean, there can be 2 views about it. I will not say this view is right or the other view is right. We made that distinction by the tenure. Some people will say no, it's a continuity. If the tenure is not broken, then it's a continuity.
That's why I said functional Prime Minister.
Yes. So there were views like that in the Executive Council also. But then a decision was made, we'll make it. We did make it.
There have been aspects he has been unhappy about in the museum, and there were, as you said, course correction. Tell me about some of those and setting impossible deadlines.
His concern is that it should not become a political gimmick or victim of political process. The concern was also there about his own gallery, where he has felt that the contribution in culture and its merger with development, which he has been trying for all these years. So here the cultural gallery, which is in his gallery, Modi Gallery, is a compartment, one cabin. He was of the view that it is oversimplified because it only shows his visits to the temple. It doesn't give the message that how temple and development in a country such as India is important. It travels together.
And now, the big one, the construction of the Ram temple, which I deliberately left to the end because I thought even if we run out of time, you will give me some extra time on that because that's a sentiment with you. And coming to that, what was your personal sentiment? You said at one point to me, you felt you were handpicked to do this. And, God had asked you to do it or sent you to do it. It's something similar to Mr. Modi's statement of not being biological, but sent by God, quote unquote. So just take me through that.
I still believe that this assignment was in some manner divinely blessed. This is not in the list of appointments meant for civil service. So, to that extent, I feel very blessed. I'm a devotee of Ma Amritanand. So, once she sent me a voice message. The message says, complete this work with a sense of surrender. The fact is, it's a very, very, my faith and what I can offer to my God is the result of is Ram Temple. That is how I look at it, and that's how I am working.
Whose perspective and direction did you follow during the construction? We'll come to Mr. Modi's inputs later, but
there was a lot of consultation. There were institutions which were consulted. There were, of course, the trust committee was consulted. A lot of changes took place. In my first 1 month, when I was told and given a model of the temple, it was very, very small temple and no vision was there of the kind that we have now. So we have changed things as we have moved. We are changing things even now. The idea which was never there in my mind was to have some kind of a smarak, memorial for those, without name of course, those who sacrificed their life for the temple. Now we are going to have memorial. This was just 2-3 months back that the decision. So it has grown over time and it has become big and big and big. Ambitious, you can call it. For example, the idea that there will be no iron used because the life of iron is short compared to what they wanted the life. They want 1,000 years temple. The life of iron is 94 years. So there was a lot of sentiment for using Rajasthan stone for the construction and not the concrete. So these are the changes which took place. The use of titanium, it has never been used before in any museum, anywhere, not even museum or temple. We are using titanium in the windows of the main temple. And mind you, this titanium you can't get in the market. This is only made by one defense establishment, public sector undertaking. So things have evolved over time. It's a very, I would say, technically now a very sound engineering work. Now you have a very huge temple where of course, sanctum sanctorum. It can accommodate at one point of time 2,000 people who can enter, have darshan and move away and then again turn.
And despite that, there are controversies about roof leakages and, it being inundated and many things going wrong.
Fortunately, and I would always like the good fortune to be showered on me. There is no such thing as of now. What really had happened was, you see, we are conscious of the fact that anything happening in Ayodhya temple will make it international news.
Absolutely.
So, the ground floor was done up completely. The first and second floor, certain domes were still open to the sky. So, the water was coming. That was known to the people also. There was no concern of that. What really happened, that the electrical conduit which was spread there, that was left open instead of closing it every evening when you are doing the work. So in the rain, the water passed through the conduit and came to the garbhagriha of the ground floor. That was the worry. It was checked and it was made very clear. The engineers have certified that no such thing happened. You have not mentioned, but let me mention you. The most serious challenge was the crack seen in the plinth, crack in the stone. That's the most serious thing, and crack in some cladded stones on the main wall. Obviously, we took it very seriously. In the case of plinth and raft, the finding was that because we have not bothered to calculate the expansion of the stone when the temperature rises, therefore it has cracked at places where the tension is there. So that then could be resolved. Then they shortened it, and in between the joints you give the expansion space. So once that was given, the crack was done away. Similarly, in the cladded stone also there were cracks. All the cracks have been removed, and a stone of smaller size have been now placed in the ramp. But that has also been done up, and the mistakes have been corrected. Now, for example, there is a system. Every day when there is a rain, there are identified 10 people who go and inspect all the places. They inspect the drainage system. They inspect where all the water is getting logged in 71 acres.
Of course, rectifying mistakes is fine, but don't you think quite a lot of it is because of the projects, and I'm not only talking about Ayodhya, but many other projects, are more deadline driven. You must complete within this, which is Mr. Modi's diktat, which is a good thing. But at the same time, doesn't, deadline somehow compromise quality?
No, it should not. If your deadlines are rational and if it has taken into account all the systems that the engineering projects dictate, for example, you must have SOP, you must have material management, you must have quality audit, intermediate quality audit, then such deadlines don't compromise with the quality.
But the many projects which Mr. Modi has inaugurated seem to have undergone problems.
Overplayed. I was told some expressway has given way. But these are, small little things which is exaggerated because it has been inaugurated by a personality. As of now, I can assure, and we are very sensitive, the engineering reports are giving 100% assurance that the work has been done as per the design drawing given and material tested.
Technicalities apart, how clued in was Mr. Modi when it came to the construction of the temple, and what was his contribution, role, and inputs?
The first Modi's expectation, I would call it, that this should be a temple which must compete in the gallery of the top temples over the world. Because he was for sure, he mentioned twice this, that you will see there will be comparisons made of this temple with any other temple, even in India. People will start making. People will say, my shikhar is higher than the shikhar of Ayodhya. So that was one. The second, of course, his very strong influence was about the other temples being made, because he wanted this not to become a temple of North, not to become only accepted in UP and Bihar. He was very particular that it must get acknowledged by South. And we are we are abiding by those guidelines that he has given. He has even made choices like what are the kind of temples he will make, smaller temples. For example, the temple of Mishadraj, the temple of Ahilya, the temple of Sabri, the temple of Valmiki. They are all his suggestions. There have been direct conversation with him. So overall, in the temple, the philosophy is his. What kind of temple it should give as the impression, the vision is his. And I would say overall, we are all conscious of living to his expectation. That's the most important thing. What is he expecting and how we are reacting? Somewhere in his mind, he wants to make Ayodhya as a tourist spot, national and international. So these are the kind of things we hear and we try and do the course correction.
And my last question, between Principal Secretary to Prime Minister, between the temple construction and overseeing or creating this Prime Minister's museum, which has been the toughest?
Well, the toughest because of the very size and my inexperience, no track record, was the temple construction. We didn't have any engineering detail of this temple. The ancient temples have not left any paper. So I had no reference point, and I am not an engineer. So that perhaps the size and the complications and the social sensitivity. The social sensitivity is very strong of Ayodhya. Of course, they have gained in their, overall enrichment. They today are at least 10 to 20 times more richer than before, right from the trader, smallest trader, to the hotel wala. But still they want this temple, they don't want to name it. I would hate to name that, but just to clarify the point in a short sentence, they keep mentioning it should be Vatican of Hindus. It's not a very honorable sentence because comparisons are not the best thing to do. But all these things do bother me mentally, that what I am doing and what I'll be leaving, whether I have really met the expectations of the masses, but the expectations of millions of people who are coming.
So between working for Prime Minister Modi and the temple, which gave you more sleepless nights?
Well, sleepless night because I was getting less hours of sleep there as Prime Minister's principal secretary. The meetings will go on till about 11 o'clock, or I'll be working till about 10:30 if no meeting is. But in terms of carrying the burden of yesterday to today's morning, the temple was more important. There was some unfinished agenda which I was struggling in my memory that this has to be done.
On that note, Mr. Mishra, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and thank you for taking me through your life and times and the various interesting phases.
Thank you very much.